So, hello everyone. My name is Chris J. I'm a recovering codependent.
Hey, Chris.
So, I'd like to start this workshop with the set aside prayer. And since I didn't give anybody any warning, I will just read it. And if you know it, feel free to join along. Higher power, help us to set aside the things we think we know. Help us to set aside the things we think we know about you, about ourselves, about other people, and about this program. All so that we can have a new experience in you, in ourselves, in our fellows, and in our recovery. The things that I found for me that characterize my balance is when I am feeling acceptance. I'm feeling acceptance of myself, I'm feeling acceptance of others, and I am accepted for who I am. It's also a place where I am able to make choices. I, it, and part of that is feeling safe. When I don't feel safe, I tend to make choices that are reactionary. If something is hurting, and I get into that fight or flight mode. Um, Either I am getting the hell out of the way, I am avoiding things, I'm in denial sometimes. Um, the This is not a good place. This is a place where choices that I make either hurt myself or others, and generally it's both are happening. I'm hurting others and myself at the same time. So how about we flip it to the other side? What does unbalance look like? When you are out of balance, out of alignment, whatever you feel like calling it, what does what does that look like to you? So one part for me is I don't know my feelings. My feelings are all jumbled up. There's just very strong feelings, and it's hard to identify what's going on for me in the moment. Um, Literally, I wrote couldn't or wouldn't make decision. Paralysis, deer in the headlights kind of feeling. That's where I'm at when I'm unbalanced. Another thing was, uh, life was happening at me. I was given two choices. I could only see two choices, and I didn't like either choice, so I get stuck. I don't know where to go. So for me, the unbalance, that unmanageability that mentioned earlier, step one, that is not a comfortable place to be. I don't want to be there anymore. Um, Before program, that's where I spend most of my time. You know, I you know, we talk about doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results or wanting different results. If I say something just right, then I'm going to get a different result. I tried doing life on my terms. I tried figuring out lessons. I tried modifying my behavior, and still things kept going sideways. They, it just went downhill. Nothing I tried was working. So for me, I was fortunate. Um, I say fortunate because I found recovery. I found a group that from the first meeting I walked in, I felt safe. I felt, when I walked in the room, I felt acceptance. I came in, I was like a ball of piano wire just buzzing on the chair, and people didn't judge me. By and large, I the feeling I got was, boy, you look like you're in a bad spot. I was there myself just a little while ago. and I was given uh, a suggestion to come back to more meetings. And for me, the first attraction to that was, you know, in for all the chaos that I felt day in, day out, every waking moment, unsettled sleep because my mind was working overtime while I was trying to get rest. Um, for the times that I was in a meeting, I felt calm. I felt space around me. And even if I didn't have balance inside, there was balance in the room that I could be who I was. So for me, balance was extremely appealing. And I wanted that. I saw people in recovery that had balance, that were living life on life's terms. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to slow down and pick and choose how to make choices. Because when I'm making choices based on resentments or fear, the resentments are things that I'm carrying over from yesterday. The fears I have are about what might happen tomorrow. When I have one foot stuck in yesterday and another foot stuck in tomorrow, I can't do anything today effectively. Um, so when when I saw people that had balance, it's like, okay, tell me how you got there. This is what I want. I became committed to coming to meetings because I needed that safety in my life. And lo and behold, I would come to a meeting. I would have all those troubles in my head. I would put them down at the door. I would feel safe in a meeting. And then the minute the meeting was over and I walked out the door, I'd pick up my baggage and I'd carry it with me again. So I wanted that transition. How do I transition the safety and balance I feel in a meeting outside of my in the real world? Because I didn't feel it, you know, just because I attended, I wasn't feeling it. I had to figure out how to transition and these principles my into my daily living. Um, so the search for balance is one of the reasons I am so committed to this program because when I practice the steps, um, I find balance. I, when I think about the Serenity Prayer, it talks about, you know, finding the, you know, the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. And I love the hula hoop image. If I have a hula hoop, the things that I cannot change are outside the hula hoop, And I don't know about you, but I've not had much success trying to put my hula hoop around someone else. It gets really, really tight and things are a little uncomfortable. The courage to change the things I can are inside the hula hoop. That's me. Um, the wisdom to know the difference is the shape of my hula hoop. I need to keep a small hula hoop. I need to keep it pretty tight around my waist because if I try to have a really, really big hula hoop and put it around this person or that person or my company or the people that are on the team with me, um, it doesn't go well. Things are not very smooth, and that imbalance comes right back. I can be balanced when I keep the hula hoop small around me. So how do I keep the hula hoop small? this is where things start to transition for me. Um, the number one thing that I learned in, well, no, I won't say number one thing. I will say a pivotal moment for me about keeping a small hula hoop was to take ownership of my disease. When I was born, what it felt like was that the operational manual for my life, the how to live life, that was empty. Got filled in by a lot of people over the years. Got filled in by my parents. It got filled in by teachers. It got filled in by friends. Um, it got filled in by other relationships. There was a lot of people who put instructions into my how-to manual, and um, that didn't work for me because when I try to live my life according to someone else's plans or expectations, um, there's a couple of things that happen. Either I disagree and I'm doing things because of somebody else's principles or their priorities or what's important to them. I'm not living my life, and that caused tension. It caused tension in me because I, you know, these rules that are made up by someone else, um, they don't feel right. One of my big instructors was my father, and my father, when I was 18, I I graduated high school, and I had some good things and some bad things. Nothing was truly earth shattering, um, but there were things that I didn't necessarily agree with. My father had a powerful intellect. He was a voracious reader. He was extremely intelligent. And in the church that we attended, he he became a leader. He actually chose a second career to be a minister, and his congregation received a lot of acceptance and compassion and gentleness. And this person would come home and he would rage at his immediate family if there was anything that could possibly hint his life wasn't perfect. Um, our behavior was strictly regulated, and um, I found that to be hypocritical, and I judged him pretty harshly for it. And I tried on my own to say, you know what, that's who he is. Um, there are things about me that I like. I liked my work ethic. I liked my book smarts. Um, and I was going to take the world on, and I was going to do things my way. I was going to become a father. I was going to be a best father. I was going to be a better father than him. And for a while, on my own power, um, I tried to let the hard things go. Um, about 10 years down the road, I was disowned. My brothers and I got a letter, and he had found a new wife. He divorced my mom. He had found a new wife. Um, and the three of us were not allowed to be part of his family anymore. And my self will crumbled. I judged him harshly. You know, how could this minister treat his congregation so kindly and his family so harshly? I spent 15 years pointing my finger at him, blaming him for all the struggles that I had because there was something that he did, which was the start of it. I blamed him left and right. Now, in recovery, I was told, look at your part. And what I had to come to was that if I stayed a victim, if I continued to blame my father, then I would never heal. I would be stuck in the past. I would be stuck with my resentment. So I had to take ownership that I was accountable. I was accountable for all the actions that I did after, the initial example. He may have given me a lesson, but instead of taking that lesson and saying, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to make the same choice, but I'm going to blame him. It's not my fault. I really had to take ownership that, I may have had a poor example, but I was smart enough to say, this hurts. This hurt me, but I'm going to do the same thing to other people. I'm going to do the same thing to people in my life. And it was an extremely bitter pill when I got to my fourth step because the things that I saw so negative about my father, those are the same choices that I was making to the people that I profess to love. So, you know, I don't for for myself, I really had to say the lesson, what I took from the lesson was the negative side. I held on to that negative side. I didn't see, that there was a different way. I didn't choose to act in a different way. That's the way I chose to act. So my side, when I think about my father today, is he gave me an example of what I don't want to do. So stop doing it. The ownership of my disease was a pivotal moment in my recovery because it was also one of the scariest things because then I'm accountable. If if I if I take responsibility for my disease, then I also have to take responsibility for the consequences. And that was frightening. It really was frightening that, I was going to tell people that I loved and that I wanted in my life, I've hurt you. I recognize that I hurt you. And I'm going to be responsible for the pain that I caused you. Talk about vulnerable. And not everybody that I said this to accepted it. You know, I I was in a relationship which the feelings that I had towards my father had poisoned that marriage. And when I got to Coda, my marriage was on the rocks. And one part of me wanted to work things out. And another part of me wanted to jam recovery down her throat too. So when I went to my first Coda meeting, I, I took my inventory, I took my wife's inventory, I took my father's inventory. So I was so totally codependent. I look back at that night and I smile at this point. Um, I wasn't ready to take ownership when I first started. Um, I was committed to feeling better. I was extremely fortunate that within 1 month of my first meeting, I I had transitioned from I came in with a desire to save my marriage, and I transitioned to a place that whether the marriage survived or not, I needed it for me. I was going to need recovery if the marriage survived to heal and do my part to recover the marriage. And if the marriage didn't survive, I didn't want to make the same mistakes moving forward. So, regardless of how God got me into the rooms, I was extremely blessed to have recognized that I needed it for myself. Everything that I didn't like about myself, everything that, when I got up in the morning, I couldn't look myself in the mirror. I didn't like who I was. I didn't like the life that I was living. I didn't like that chaos that was going on 24/7. I wanted something different. And the chaos, which it was familiar, was also, it was killing me. Another piece of my commitment to my recovery is that I believe in my heart of hearts that this disease kills. It is deadly. It's easy to identify that um, that the depression, you know, if depression spins completely out of control, that some people have made that choice to end it, that they don't see any way out. So it's easy to see where physical depression has killed, but I know that my disease, my codependency has sapped my joy. It has killed my spirit. It has wounded it where uh, you know, uh, it's in intensive care. Um, it is it is such a painful place to be. I don't know about any of you, but that's it, what I don't want to live there. I don't want to live with that desperate. When I think about um, the feeling of hopelessness, you know, I would get up in the morning after a restless night's sleep, and I'd be anxious about what was going to happen at work, and I wouldn't feel rested. And then I'd be at work, and I'd be running back and forth, chasing bonfires, and not everybody was happy. And then getting into the afternoon, there's the anxiety of going home to an unhappy wife, and what's she going to say, and is another mistake going to be revealed? And then I get home and I have a couple of beers just to try and slow that hamster wheel in my head, and trying to go to sleep at night, and the thoughts about the next bonfire tomorrow, what's going to explode. It was horrible. I don't want to be there anymore. Getting to meetings gave me a breather. Working the steps and transitioning uh, from a higher power. I always felt there was a higher power, but I put a definition on him. I put him in a box. I said, okay, there is a God. He pushed the big red button. There was the big bang, and then life is unfolded, and he is hands off. It's all up to us, which means it's all up to me. And I defined God as absent, incapable. He may be strong enough to start this universe, but he can't interfere. So for me, working the steps and getting through step two and transitioning to, okay, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you can or can't do, but I'm done trying this on my own. And instead of working so hard to say there is no God or that God is impotent, I said, let's try it your way because I'm done trying it my own. So when I do that, when I take ownership that my disease is my own, the consequences are my own, and when I say to my higher power, okay, I don't know what you can or can't do, but I'm going to try it your way, that gives me a chance. That helps me to slow down. And when I slow down, then there's an opportunity. There is an opportunity for me to try something different. You know, as we described earlier, um, couldn't or wouldn't make decisions. Um, Life is happening so fast. Uh, Panic mode, not enough time, paralysis, self will, all of these things that um, are in the unbalanced side. Um, if I slow down and if I say, higher power, I need some help, then I have a chance. I have a chance to make a different choice. Um, okay, I'm going to take one moment here. Let's see. There was a. Okay. Ah, yes. Ego. When I slow down, thank you for the one comment, by the way. Ego driven. Edge got out. It fits right exactly into where my unbalance is. Um, if I am edging God out and I am responsible um, for everybody else's feelings and all the results of the outcomes, um, then I'm the one who's trying to play God. If I slow down, then I have a chance to start using some different tools. So, does somebody in the room know like a virtuoso, a craftsman of some sort? Um, I want to I want to open up. I want to see what if somebody is like really really good at something. I want to see what are the things that they show when they're doing what they're really good at. I'll throw out an example for from my own personal life. My wife and I have a new wife, by the way, because the first marriage didn't work out. But my wife and I, celebrating our 1 year anniversary, we recently went to see a performer, a duet, and they were two virtuosos on the guitar. And watching these two, they were just magical. They were virtuosos of two different styles, and then they blended their styles together. And how they use that one instrument to make so many different sounds with so many different ways. It was incredible. They didn't need anybody else extra, and I saw a level of time and practice and craftsmanship. So I'm wondering if anybody else in the room has an example of somebody who's just regardless of what the skill set is. Thank you all for your sharing. One of the so I heard a number of things here about people who um, have skills that are inspirational. They're teachers. They lead by example. They have when I was thinking about this this part of um, my workshop, I also thought of a craftsman. I thought, and we use the word tools in our recovery. You know, if you talk to, I happen to do things with electronics and electrical components. So I've got a number of different types of screwdrivers. I've got different hammers. I've got straight edges, tape measures. You know, my screwdrivers have multiple bits. When it comes to recovery, what I need to do, I believe, is to become familiar with a lot of different tools. There are times when one tool doesn't work. I can't use a hammer to twist in a screw. You know, if I tried to use a hammer on a guitar, I'm going to be breaking it. There are times I need a hammer. If I am putting together a wall and putting together a 2x4 and driving in a nail, I need a hammer. But that is using the right tool for the right problem. Recovery is the same way. I I spend time trying to figure out what are the tools? What are the tools that I need in my spiritual handbag to pull out to stay calm? You know, if I'm in a balanced place, then I can slow down and I can open my toolbox and I can pull out this tool or that tool. I can make a choice. When I am not balanced, okay, now I need to bring in the big guns because I got to get back to balance. I have to if I am unbalanced and I am in a place where I am making unhealthy choices for me, for others, the first thing I got to do is slow down. You know, I I can't when life is happening so fast and I can't think straight, I don't make right choices. I know this about myself. I've looked in my history. I need to slow down. You know, one of the things I heard is that when I am unbalanced, it doesn't matter who or what started it. I'm the one who has a problem. You know, I don't if somebody cuts me off on the road and I have to swerve, well, I have to react. I have to get out of the way to avoid an accident. Okay. There's a reaction mode that works to protect my self care. Now, if I get angry and I start honking on the horn and I get pissed off at this guy and I carry that pissed off with me when I get to work, well, now I'm the one with the problem. Someone else started it. But if I'm holding on to the anger, I'm the one who has the problem. I need to figure out how to let go of that anger. And this is where the steps help. This is where getting honest with myself helps. So many of the times that I am angry at someone else, I have realized that they are reflecting something about myself that I don't like. You know, I hated when I first started recovery, I hated that adage. If you spot it, you got it. It's horrible. because I saw some ugly things about other people. And if somebody tells me that I've got it, I'm like, no, I don't have it. Nah. Ugh. God. The hypocrisy that I saw in my father, I saw in myself. Um, because I was telling people that I don't want to be judged, but I was judging them. I was um, I had uh, expectations of others, and I hated it when people would come up to me with their expectations. You ask me a question, and then you get pissed off if I say no. Well, you had an expectation that I was going to say yes, and you weren't giving me the space to say no. But I was doing the same thing. It is. It was a serious dose of humility, and then when I slow down, I also remembered some other examples. You know, when I talk about road rage and being upset with people on the road, you know, I don't know who or what is going on in that person's life. I When I got into recovery and I started to slow down and I started to get honest with myself, I remember a story from when I was growing up. I was a teenager. My older brother was, you know, 3.5 years older than me. It was bigger. Um, there's no way that I could confront him on a physical level. And just, the difference between 17 and 14 is a lot. Well, there was a time that I had had enough, and being good scout that I was, I had a bunch of tools that I would use when I went camping. And my brother was on the bus with me, and he was just yapping away at me, and I had a bad day. I just wanted to listen to music, and before I started doing my chores, and he was like, I went to close the door in my room, and he put his foot in the doorway, and he blocked the door, and he was not backing off, just yap, yap, yapping. Very calmly, I went to my bed, pulled out my backpack, I pulled out a mock Rambo, survival tool knife that I used when I was camping, and I pulled it out of the sheath and just turned around. And my brother stepped out of the doorway, and I closed the door and I turned on my music. And my younger brother called my mom, and she reacted like any other mom would. Gotta go. And the boss is like, you go. And my mom made a 15-minute trip in about 7 minutes from work to home. Now, I imagine that she cut a few people off in that trip, and I imagine that she might have pushed those red lights just a little bit to get home in 7 minutes. And my mom is the sweetest little thing, love her to bits. You know, I can imagine that she stepped on a few toes in that experience. So when somebody cuts me off today, instead of thinking about how close I was to a wreck, I keep in mind I don't know if that's a lady going home to a son that is a crisis at home. I don't know what is going on in their life. It helps me to slow down, to have something where, you know, there's the exception. There's the rule of thumb. Yeah, it's probably odds on that a lot of people are just inconsiderate, but not all of them. And I don't know what's going on in their life. Yeah, always good to see that I'm using the same tools that other people are using. Um, very definitely, a lot of what I heard you guys share with me is slow down. Um,
Mhm.
you know, to wait, to make a decision, get in the moment, get outside of myself, because the hamster wheel, when it starts spinning, it can go 0 to 60 in a heartbeat in my head. I
Yep.
know that. So slowing down before making a decision is a huge thing. Um, one of the, some things that I were shared with me early, um, I didn't really like, but they have made much more sense after the fact. One thing that made sense immediately was pause, pray, proceed. Um, I need a pause, okay, and sometimes people don't like it when I take a pause, but I have come to realize that if I don't pause, then you're not going to like what I'm coming up with, and I'm not going to like what I'm coming up with. So why don't you pause and give me a chance to figure something out? Because for me, I know that some of my decisions that were harmful were based on someone else. I had a history of of being hurt, and I would lash out in that hurt. I'd step on toes when I was in that hurt. I would say mean things when I was in that hurt. So for me, sometimes hitting that pause and putting that spiritual duct tape on my mouth is the best thing I can do, because um, I know how words can hurt. I've been the recipient of it, and I'm not proud of it, but I have used it in the past to hurt people with my words. Um, Actually, part of I'll come back to that later. Um, the Let's see. I love those three questions. What do I think? What do I feel? What do I need? I so appreciate that, because if I slow down to think about those questions, um, then I'm hitting that pause. Um, Something else that was said was being self aware. And I love that answer. It's so huge for me. Um, yeah, I am a codependent. I I have good days and I have bad days. Knowing what my signs are is a huge piece. Um, I personally struggle with judgments. I make judgments. Um, when I'm in a good place, I can say, you know, good luck with that. It's not what I would choose, but good luck with that choice. And I can walk away. When I'm not in a good place, I get cranky. I get, you're doing it wrong, and you're jeopardizing my safety. So stop doing this. Um, a couple years back, uh, I'll give you an example. A couple years back, I there was somebody in one of my meetings that felt inclined to put together literature, a handout for the meeting, and bring it and hand it out to everybody, and that would be his lead. And uh, I'm I'm Mr. Coda here. I'm committed to this program. I'm gonna put my foot down, and I'm gonna say something, and I'm gonna follow the dealing with disagreements, and I'm gonna go to him directly, and if he doesn't like it, then I'm gonna go to the group, and I'm gonna get them to back me up. Um, and my sponsor called me on it, and he said, "You're not the Coda police. That's not your place. And I was like, yeah, but see, if I'm a Christian, I wouldn't go to a mosque with the Bible, and if I'm Muslim, I'm not going to go to an Orthodox church with a Quran. I mean, I'm going to respect those boundaries that they have put. These are reasonable boundaries, and you know, I what I know is what works for me. That's what I know. I I can learn about the suggestions. I can learn about healthy meetings. I can learn what works and what doesn't work for me. And I can speak my truth. But it is not up to me to impose what works for me on someone else. So that was a very valuable lesson for me because I am passionate about this group. I am passionate about the suggestions. I am so committed to my recovery. Um, I know I will struggle with codependency in to the day I die. I have too many lessons. I have too much history of using unhealthy tools. I I have a chance at making good choices if I follow the principles. I have a chance of being respectful of others if I work my steps. If I find that place of balance, if I find that trust in my higher power and turn things over to them, you know, my tools do include the steps. Um, occasionally I get a question, what is my favorite step? I don't like answering that. I can tell you that the most important step is whichever one I am in. At sometimes I'm in step one. That is the most important step because that's where I'm stuck. That's where my life is out of balance. That's where I am unmanageable. That's where I am in reaction mode. And step one is the most important one for me. And then there are times when I don't know what to do. And step three is most important because I have to turn it over and say, okay, God, I don't know what you want, but I'm gonna trust that you will help me through it. Sometimes it's step seven, be willing to let go of my old ways. The most important step is wherever I'm at. And it's a yo-yo. It changes day in and day out, moment to moment. Some of my other tools. Ah, traditions. I love the traditions. I One of the most impactful times of my life was going through the relationship toolkit with my then girlfriend and my current wife. I cannot describe how transformational it was in my life. Um, in part of our story was during our long distance relationship, she and I journeyed to Arizona and went to for a photo opportunity in the wilderness. There was going to be a sunset, full moon, and then in an hour later there's going to be the moonrise, and it was going to be a spectacular event, and we planned it for a month before we got there. And during that time, we started running low on water, and we made a choice to go forward, and we fought for our lives. We ran out of water, we were unable to reach civilization. We were that remote. And the sun set, night in the desert, and it was on Good Friday. So it we were fortunate that it wasn't blazing hot, but it was hot enough. It is the desert. It's a high desert. And we literally the traditions saved our life. We used the traditions, we cooperated. Looking back, I can see where every one of the traditions played a part in us surviving that adventure. We had actually been working that toolkit. I have read it, and on the surface, there are times where there seem to be conflict. There seems to be different instructions. We have one tradition that talks about unity, and um, and group conscience is another one. But then we have other traditions that talk about autonomy and other traditions that talk about self sufficiency. You know, when do we reach out for help? When are we responsible for ourselves? And I got to tell you that when I am out of balance, when I am unmanageable, I don't know. I get confused. The first thing I need to do is slow down. I need that step one and say, okay, my life is unmanageable. And I need that step three to say, okay, God, you're bigger than my problem. I'm going to turn it over to you. Um, and I'm going to, I it, the problem is yours, but I realize that I'm going to have to get some insight from you as to what I'm going to do. I look at all 12 of these traditions, and there is not one single one that is the most important. They are equally valuable because just like my toolbox has got different types of screwdrivers and hammers, these traditions, they, when used in concert and harmony with each other, they help me pick through some of the most confusing elements of my life. I do have a favorite though. The the tradition that has helped me the most was defining my own primary purpose. Uh, Coda has a primary purpose that helps me when I am with this group. And my wife and I worked on a primary purpose for the two of us. Because in our relationship, there's me, there's her, and then there's God. And the relationship is its own entity. Before I could work on what I felt motivated to do was to work on my own personal primary purpose. I realized that there were times in my life when I was a very driven person, and that was because I had a primary purpose. I was in school and I had to get good grades to get into this career choice. And when I had a personal primary purpose of this world, I was very focused and it was easy for me to make decisions. That career didn't work out, and I did not have a personal primary purpose. Having done the work and the steps and having recognized what are core values for me, I worked on a personal primary purpose. And then I worked with my girlfriend for our relationship primary purpose. I am very, very blessed because those three primary purposes, which are so key to my sense of serenity and calm and balance, they harmonize. My personal primary purpose does not conflict with our relationship primary purpose, and it does not conflict with Coda's primary purpose. But having that is like a compass. It points me through. It points me through things that used to baffle the crap out of me. I can see my way through when I can say yes and when I can say no, when I give time and when I need to self care. There are the truth is that there is no one toolbox for any of us. There's a whole collection of tools, and it is up to each and every one of us to pick out which ones work for each of us. I don't use journaling and writing very much, but there are times that I journal and write. The affirmations are huge. When I'm in the crisis, I need a quick reminder to pause, pray before I proceed. When I am getting ready to jump off that cliff, I remember becoming aware and accepting before I take action. There are so many times that I have gone from awareness to action without accepting. I need to accept things as they are before I take action because acceptance is huge. With my father, I have finally come to a place of acceptance. I had to accept that whether I understand why he disowned my brothers and me doesn't change that he did. Having accepted that he can make good and bad choices gives me permission to make good and bad choices of my own. So, my recovery tools, steps, traditions, affirmations, you know, the primary purpose helps me to find my way through. But all of them are valuable. And the important thing is that you try them to figure out which works for you.